Hello there. Level editors are quite special. Unlike in any other mediums, games allow you to take the wheel. But it doesn't quite take that to the extent it can until it lets you influence the games to the extent level editors and other creative tools do. I've spent a huge chunk of my time on games making stuff for them instead of actually playing them. From making levels that would never see the light of day in Super Mario Flash and Super Mario Bros. X, to making horrible Mega Man Maker and Geometry Dash levels, attempting to rank maps on OOS, trying to figure out, whatever the hell this is, all the way to now considering giving Hammer and Counter-Strike mapping a proper try when I get my hands on CS2. Oh yeah, also working on a fan game in RPG Maker XP. Wait, did you guys hear something? Level editors are important, and that's why I, an avid user of level editors, want to look at them, and in this video, I'll be looking at them from two different perspectives, what are the characteristics of a great level editor, and a brief overview of why they're so important. For the purposes of this video, I'll be talking mostly about game-specific level editors, since those are what I use most. I also looked at a lot of other proprietary and more general level editors, so to an extent, I guess it applies to most of them, but don't quote me on that. With that out of the way though, let's get to it. So, first things first, well, first impressions matter. When you first open the editor, you want the player to immediately know where to look and what buttons to press if they want to do certain things. Placing down objects, geometry, tiles, tools, moving them around, moving the camera around, etc. Simpler games have a major advantage on this front. Geometry Dash and the Mario Maker games are great examples of editors that are intuitive and quick to pick up due to their game's simplicity. Of course, regardless of how good your level editor is, you still need some way to teach the user how to do things.
How to place what?
A built-in or officially referenced level editor tutorial, or at least a form of resource in any way, is very much appreciated. Deciding how you should go about with that is, well, completely up to you. The two instances of official resources I can name are Hammer and Osu's official documentation on their editors. In most cases of documentation and wikis and all that though, they usually end up a little too out of the way, so it'd be nice to make it more obvious that there is a resource that can help them. Well, they'd probably just look up YouTube tutorial anyways, but it's still nice to have a resource, as it's not just for new users but also for everyone, from learning the basics to helping more experienced users troubleshoot.
Was this section supposed to be about making the editor intuitive in the first place? Also, what about graphics? Isn't that also pretty important to the new user?
Well, graphics are subjective, but that brings me to my second point. Quality of life, quality of life, quality of life. Level editors themselves are workspaces. Anyone working on levels, which may include you, another team member, or players, will be using it for a long time, and each session might even stretch out for long periods of time by themselves. So anything to reduce the amount of time, or say, amount of hoops to jump through, adds up a lot in the long term. For example, say an action takes 1 second, but then let's say you add a shortcut or a hotkey to do it, and it halves that time to about half a second. And then give a task to two people to create the exact same map. One mapper uses the old method while the other one uses the newer method. If both mappers make the exact same map but with the two different methods, then over the course of making the whole level from start to finish, then the old method may have costed the first mapper around 20 minutes total just doing that action, who knows how many times. While it only costed the other mapper 10 total minutes, doing that same action the same amount of times. This is just one action out of the possible hundreds or thousands possible in a level editor. Cutting down the time to do something builds up over the long term. And also, don't forget to hint at things like shortcuts and hotkeys somewhere. I forgot to mention that earlier, but better late than never. But speaking of, you should really take into account very popular standards specific to your platform. For example, Ctrl-C copies, Ctrl-X cuts, Ctrl-V paste, Ctrl-S save, pinching in on a touchscreen should zoom out, and vice versa, etc. Please don't try and do anything weird with these common shortcuts unless you have a really good reason for it. I swear to God. As for new shortcuts, just take into account how often you find yourself doing it and how you have to move your hand or your other body part to trigger that. The more you have to do it, the more comfortable it should be. Well, I mean, the whole point of shortcuts and hotkeys are to make things comfortable, but if you have to do it a lot, that should have more of a priority. Back to the topic though, make sure you're making everything easy and smooth to navigate. The way your editor's camera works should be intuitive, whether or not you can change the windows and docks around and how you change them. The placement of buttons in menus, things like OK, cancel, back and all that should be consistent. Importing assets, going through assets, sorting the assets and applying those assets into the level, optimizing the way search bars work in your editor, naming conventions, properly naming things, how the editor conveys the data it wants to show the user, and the list can go on, but this is everything I can name for now. Oh wait, one more thing. Put the most commonly used settings, buttons, menus, actions, whatever, up front where the player can access to it very quickly, and it should be very visible, very contrasting, very obvious, and as universally understandable as possible. I will keep saying this, make them hard to miss, because us end users can be very dumb sometimes. And on an unrelated note, preset systems. In 3D editors, things like primitive shapes, preset shapes, and objects. In 2D, things like being able to save certain groups of objects a la Geometry Dash's custom objects. And while I'm talking about objects, snapping. Literally any form of snapping that can be changed quickly and is toggleable on and off. This is because changing the grid and often going off-grid allows for more complex design in general, but usually grids are, well, there for a reason.
I like scenery, smiley face.
Oh, and also, object groups,
Objects being stuck together.
and instances.
Clones of one object that will always have the same properties.
Those two are also pretty important to saving a lot of time. And if you can, try to have options where you can see the level in action or in the eyes of the player as accurately as possible in the level editor. It can be resource intensive depending on your game, but that's not a problem. Usually engine dependent, but it also, depends on your rig, so yeah, take that into account. As for graphics and presentation, anything really goes as long as it can effectively communicate what something does. But please at least consider trying to make the user interface look readable, tidy, and more importantly, consistent. Keep the way certain things look consistent. Make menus feel unified and share a sort of flow. And for a plus, integrate the game's themes into it too, just for fun. Okay, next up is different ways to view the level. A player's view of the level is important, but it's also important to be able to see information that the player might not be able to see. Preferably though, toggleable, things like views of clip brushes, geometry wireframes, event triggers, hitboxes, something like camera's cordon system that limits what's being rendered, and just about whatever else you can think of that might be unique to your game that you're making a level editor for. And finally, make the playtesting easier since it's arguably the most important part of level design. Usually the most you can do is give debug tools, things like invincibility, no-clip, disabling AI, editing variables, and etc. during playtesting sessions. There are also other features like freely choosing where you can start a playtesting session or being able to pause and then edit mid-session. Of course though, all that really depends on the engine, so you just gotta work with whatever you get to work with. The gist of this section is just think about what a user will be doing from the moment they open the editor, to the moments where they go around and make stuff, to the moment it's functional and the user is playtesting. And then try to streamline that process as much as possible with shortcuts, quality of life improvements, and intuitive designs. Again, all this dives more into UI and UX design, which I'm not too familiar with, so let's move on to... So your level editor is now easy to pick up and use, but now it's time to think about the long term. If your level editor or game can hook people in, some will stay with it for a long time, and it's usually worth every single drop of tear and sweat to make all these level editors deeper to really let them let loose. The best way to do this is to give your users the ability to modify gameplay critical aspects one way or another, sometimes maybe even beyond what you've used in the official game. This can be things like the behavior and properties of an NPC or object, things like values, damage, textures, models, whatever else, speaking of custom textures and models too. Or if you're up to the task, even a form of scripting. Scripting is a very powerful tool allowing for levels that go beyond into their own mods. But implementing a scripting system is a whole headache on its own to say the very least. So I won't really blame you if you don't. In general, modifiers to anything is a blessing. Geometry, objects, whatever. It's always a plus in an editor when you can really easily modify something complex. And in order to allow for depth, you again also need the ability to see those changes in real time. So it just shaves a lot of time having to go back and forth and just having to hope that you didn't screw anything up. And speaking of modifying things, customizability. I only mentioned it a little bit earlier, but being able to set up your own workflow is a blessing. Being able to move your dockers, menus, windows, what have you, and also what tools you have in what order allows people to really find their personal workflow and optimize it themselves. But why am I talking about modifying things in this section? Well, I believe a good tool is one that facilitates iteration and exploration. The more you can change up and explore, the higher the ceiling for your games to evolve. If it's really hard to get into the nitty-gritty of the game, designs will either be stagnant or will be taking a lot more time to evolve. Now, I want to look back at this whole first part of the video. Notice how I really only talked about UX and everything is very general and simplified. This is because level editors are, well, tools to be continually developed in their own right. Making one is a huge investment by itself, and just like the skill it facilitates, level design, it is not only very overlooked, most of the work is done after you make it functional, where you now have to keep iterating and improving it and its workflow until it is at a point where it fulfills its purpose as an efficient platform to allow creativity in levels for its game. From that point on, it's truly a case-by-case basis. But that brings us to the truth. As long as it's functional, it's technically good, right?
But working on the level would be inconvenient and needlessly frustrating, wouldn't it?
I mean, yeah, but it's also very technically challenging to make a good one. So let me really ask, why should we even put this much effort into a level editor in the first place? Or why should you even make a level editor for your game? Well, first of all, if you are the developer, you are benefiting from a level editor. Well, that depends, so let me iterate. Your game engine in many cases may also double as a level editor, and it might be the perfect one to make your game, but it might not be the best level editor for that game specifically. By having a separate place to make your levels, the more control you have over them. And also you and or your level designers can just focus on solely level design. A great one allows space for total creativity, removes some trivial barriers, and those two set the game up to have much higher quality content through better and faster time making levels. It's also a matter of how much programming you or your team want to take up versus design. A level editor is a hefty investment that requires a lot of time from the programming side of things just to make a functional one, let alone implementing the features I mentioned earlier, to maintaining it with bug fixes, iterating upon it with improvements, and etc. But as I mentioned earlier, it can significantly speed up the process. Inversely, if you don't have the right tools, it can significantly slow things down and hold back the users. You get tired physically, mentally, and psychologically much faster if there are a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of jank to work around, and a lot of confusion looking around the screen for what you're trying to do, and a lot of menial tasks just to take care of when you want to make levels. It also speeds up the process because if you and or your team develop it, you have much better knowledge of the editor because, well, you made it. So there's no learning curve, you just get straight to it. Or at least much faster than having to learn another editor. You have a better time on focusing on how to make it as efficient in the context of your game and focus on the aesthetics once you're planning to ship it. Or don't. I mean, you made it, it's up to you what you do with it. Of course, it depends on the engine and what kind of game you're making, so I hope you take that as you will. Really think about it, weigh the pros and cons of whether you should make a level editor for that specific game you're thinking of. Or if you should just use your engine's pre-existing editor, or if you just use some other proprietary software available. Now let's really take players into the mix. Why should you, a developer, make a public level editor? Well, firstly, it gives players the opportunity to make content for you. Case in point, Super Mario Maker, OS, Geometry Dash. These three games rely almost entirely on custom levels to even stay alive. And they show just how well they can carry your game for years if not decades. I still can't put into words just how much level editors provide by themselves. They're used for self-expression, exploration of novel ideas in the platform you provide, and sometimes they're just used for fun in their own right. It's quite literally a near endless fountain of content for everyone it can be involved with, from the creators to the people they share those creations with. And lastly and most importantly, by giving players a level editor, you might be directly contributing to the next generation of game developers. Level editors are low-risk, low-barrier ways to learn the basics of level design. One of those skills with a high floor, varying learning curves, and a ceiling so high it's hard to say if there even is one. By providing a level editor, you provide players with a place where they can make all the annoying, unintuitive, and generally badly designed levels all they want without having to worry about learning an engine and without any pressure to really succeed. But sometimes it succeeds, and sometimes when it succeeds, it really succeeds. Of course, if I were to name any one case of this, it's Valve. You saw this coming from a mile away, surely.
Yep, look, a video of yours without Valve being mentioned somewhere.
I mean, yeah, I grew up on Valve, what did you expect? Well, either way, most of Valve's projects started as mods of other existing games, and some started as mere rule changes or custom levels. Dota has the Truths in Warcraft's world editor, for example.
It started by putting a bunch of Counter-Strike bots on one team and letting them only use knives.
Right, but that's not exactly a custom map, was it? That's just a rule change.
Well, zombie modes were already done in Counter-Strike from just a mess wordplay. Turtle only went out of their way to experiment with upping the horror. And for that, they made this custom map.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. It's fair enough. Either way, regardless of everything I've said about a good editor earlier though, if your game inspired someone enough that they want to make content for your game, at least a small portion will still take time of their lives to try and make that something with it regardless. But making it better for those people and also everyone else, help them make your game a better one.
To the players, thank your developer. It takes quite a lot to just make a functioning editor. And it takes more to make one that all owns qualities and expertise. But in the end, whether it was for them or for you, you've been handed the keys. To the developers, make them easy to learn, easy to use. Make them deep enough that you can let loose. A source of fun for the creative, and a place to learn. And when you're done with it, give the players their turn. Give them an inch, and they'll take a mile. Give them a mile, and they'll make everyone smile.
Hello there, it's post me. Thank you for waiting for so long for this video. I was working on another video back in July, but it ended up getting scrapped, so you know, that's why nothing really happened that month. This video also kind of just, you know, took a little bit more than I expected to make, so yeah. Oh yeah, and this robot, that's I finally made a new OC, so meet Taro.
Hi.
Taro's gonna be joining the videos from now on, just as a, you know, addition to the cast. But yeah, if you're new here, please also check my other videos, and if you like this video, please consider supporting me on Buy Me a Coffee. I work on all these videos solo, so it'd be nice to get some support and potentially make this sustainable. But you know, like, subscribe, comment also helps a lot for the algorithm. But anyways, thanks again for sticking by, and I'll see you guys in the next one, whenever that is. Peace.